This video is brought to you by Paradox Interactive. What's up guys, Jared again. There are few filmmakers who inspire as much adoration as Christopher Nolan. From mind-bending thrillers to superhero adventures to World War II epics, Nolan has made solid films in many genres. But there's one Nolan movie that's divided the Wisecrack crew. Some proclaim it a masterpiece while others just roll their eyes. I'm talking about his big space opus, Interstellar. There was so much hype surrounding Interstellar's release. Nolan had already been called the new Stanley Kubrick, and this film was supposed to cement this comparison with Nolan's very own 2001: A Space Odyssey. Yet, reactions were mixed. People praised the ambition and the visuals of the film, while taking issues with some of the more emotional moments. While The Dark Knight, Inception, and The Prestige have been discussed, studied, and deemed irrefutably smart, it seems the jury's still out on Interstellar. But don't worry, we're here to finally put that question to rest. So welcome to this Wisecrack edition on Interstellar, deep or dumb, and yeah, obviously, spoilers ahead. But before we get into that, I want to give a shout out to this video's sponsor, Surviving Mars, and their newest expansion, Green Planet. Similar to Interstellar, Surviving Mars focuses on what it might be like to start a colony on a new planet. This survival strategy game explores the challenges that will come with moving to a new planet. The newest expansion focuses on terraforming an entire planet to be livable for humans. So stick around to the end of the video to hear more about the game, or check it out yourself by clicking the link in the description. And now, back to the show. Okay, first, a quick recap. In the not too distant future, a global blight has rendered most of Earth's land useless. Humanity's only hope is ex-pilot Cooper and his 10-year-old daughter Murph, who mysteriously receive coordinates from a ghostly presence that leads them to a secret NASA headquarters led by Coop's former mentor, Dr. John Brand. Recently, an alien entity opened up a wormhole that may lead to a new habitable planet. Dr. Brand is developing a gravitational equation to save humanity by relocating everyone to another planet. But if that doesn't work, Plan B is to leave humanity behind and populate a new planet with frozen embryos. With the embryos in tow, Coop reluctantly sets out to the wormhole, leaving his daughter and son behind. Coop and the crew, including Dr. Brand's daughter Amelia, reach one of the potential planets, but an error in their plan costs them 23 years due to relativity. Murph, now grown up, discovers that Dr. Brand was lying. His equation that would save the people of Earth was a sham. The only hope for humanity lies in the embryos on board Coop's ship. Yet, Murph refuses to give up and continues to search for an answer. Coop eventually sacrifices himself so that Amelia can go on with the human embryos and falls into the black hole. But he's saved by the, quote, aliens who have made him a cozy little tesseract which he can use to communicate with Murph. Turns out these aliens aren't aliens, they're future humans. Murph realizes the ghostly presence from her childhood was actually her father all along, and she decodes a new message from him to complete Brand's equation and save humanity off the dying Earth. Coop wakes up on a space station populated with Earth's inhabitants, where he finally reunites with his daughter, now well over 90. She tells Coop that his mission isn't over. He needs to go find Amelia and a new planet for humanity. The end. Now, before we can determine if Interstellar is deep or dumb, we first have to understand what Nolan was trying to achieve. Everyone always makes the 2001 comparisons, and at first glance, this may seem apt. Both films have an alien artifact, space exploration, a robot, a second act dominated by a crew member going loco, and a phantasmagoric third act. But these are only aesthetic similarities. Underneath it all, the films are quite different. Whereas Kubrick's film is meant to give us deliberately opaque answers to the unknown, Interstellar does the opposite. It seeks to embolden us, to inspire us, to make the unknown knowable and transparent. Now, I know what you're thinking. What does making the unknown knowable even mean? Well, let's look at 3 ways he tries to communicate this message. Part 1. Interstellar's setting and structure. Interstellar is set on an Earth on the brink of collapse. The amount of arable land dwindles by the day. All science points to humanity dying out in 1 generation, tops. Even worse, everyone has given up on any long-term solution, resigned to just maintain life for as long as possible before their inevitable doom. Cooper, a former NASA pilot, does exactly this. He forgoes his dreams of aero exploration to tend to his farm and family. In this new world, hope is suppressed. Space travel is treated not just as a wasteful impracticality, but an outright lie. In order to stifle any ambitions outside the immediate issues facing humanity, Textbooks have been rewritten to suggest that the lunar landing was a hoax. NASA, too, has been dismantled and disgraced.
And if we don't want a repeat of the excess and wastefulness of the 20th century, then we need to teach our kids about this planet, not tales of leaving it.
But Interstellar argues against this, to not get bogged down in the existential dread, but to fight against the dying of the light. Dr. Brand constantly repeats Dylan Thomas's poem, "Do not go gentle into that good night."
Do not go gentle into that good night. Old age should burn and rave at close of day. Rage, rage against the dying of the light.
And it reflects the film's primary ethos, the pioneer spirit. American rhetoric often assumes this quintessential belief, that growth and survival comes through exploration. This ethos led to the country's expansion into the West and its exploration into space. Brand uses Thomas's poem to incentivize Cooper and his NASA engineers to leave their families and look to the stars for a solution to humanity's crisis. Dr. Brand uses the lie of his gravitational equation to give humanity hope for a better world. If he told the truth, Coop wouldn't leave his family and pilot the spaceship. The human race would inevitably die out. It's only through the lie that Brand keeps the pioneer spirit intact. Cooper, too, constantly extols the pioneer ethos.
It's like we've forgotten who we are, Tom. Explorers, pioneers, not caretakers. Well, we used to look up in the sky and wonder at our place in the stars. Now we just look down and worry about our place in the dirt.
Look no further than how he defines Murphy's Law. Typically, Murphy's Law is stated as the adage, anything that can go wrong will go wrong, a fairly pessimistic and resigned outlook. This falls in line with most of humanity's thinking in the film, that the planet is doomed and we should just use what little time is left to feed our own before oblivion comes. But Coop favors a less traditional definition. Per Coop, Murphy's Law instead means
What happened? What it means is that whatever can happen will happen.
this recontextualization favors the pioneer ethos, to explore outwards, discover things, and expand the definition of what can happen.
We're explorers, right? This is our boat.
Yet, the plot of Interstellar sometimes undercuts this ethos. Cooper's journey into the unknown has already been pre-planned. He's just a pawn in future humanity's grand circular scheme. If these fifth-dimensional aliens, i.e. future us, are guiding Cooper the entire time, it makes the whole human ingenuity thing a whole lot less convincing. I mean, is Cooper really saving mankind through the pioneer ethos, or has he been given all the answers by a metaphysical helping hand? Nolan also highlights the importance of the pioneer ethos through the film's structure. Interstellar, in some ways, resembles Joseph Conrad's seminal novella, Heart of Darkness, which is all about journeying into the unknown. In Heart of Darkness, Marlowe, a sea captain, sails down the Congo River yearning to fill in the blank spaces on his map. Similarly, in Interstellar, Cooper leads an expedition into the blank reaches of space, driven by a need to explore the unknown. Doyle even refers to the black hole Cooper and his team are traveling to as
a literal heart of darkness.
As Marlowe delves deeper into the Heart of Darkness, he comes face to face with the dark side of man. This is personified by Colonel Kurtz, who preceded Marlowe into the jungle, hoping to civilize the indigenous populations. In regular society, Kurtz is praised as a remarkable man with a generous mind whose goodness shone in every act. Yet by the time Marlowe reaches Kurtz, the jungle has corrupted him whole. Kurtz no longer has any interest in civilizing the people, he just wants to exterminate all the brutes. In Interstellar, Dr. Mann too is described as the best of us, as a remarkable man.
You once said that Dr. Mann was the best of us.
He's remarkable.
Just like Kurtz, Mann preceded Cooper into space, and by the time Cooper reaches him, Mann has been corrupted by his time alone on the newfound planet. Both Kurtz and Mann are consumed by their own selfish desires. Kurtz forces the natives to worship him, proclaiming everything in the jungle his own. You should have heard him say, "My ivory, my intended, my ivory, my station, my river, everything belonged to him." And Mann selfishly lies about the habitable prospects of his planet, just so others will come to save him. He even egotistically refers to the planet as his own.
Truth is, I never really considered the possibility that my planet wasn't the one.
Just as Heart of Darkness comments on the innate selfishness of mankind, Nolan uses man to cynically do the same. I mean, the character's name is Man. Also, one could draw a parallel between Dr. Brand's necessary lie about the gravity equation with Marlowe's lie to Kurtz's intended at the novella's end, falsely telling her that Kurtz's last words were her name. But using Heart of Darkness to celebrate humanity's pioneer ethos is a little awkward. Conrad presented a much more nuanced look at exploration. The idea to explore may be pure, but often went hand in hand with European imperialism. The conquest of the Earth, which mostly means the taking it away from those who have a different complexion or slightly flatter noses than ourselves, is not a pretty thing when you look into it too much. What redeems it is the idea only. Yet for Nolan, exploration, specifically the space variety, is an unabashedly pure and worthwhile pursuit. Now, while we wouldn't go as far as to say the movie is dumb for alluding to Conrad, it's just not the most precise reference to make. Same with the whole predestination thing. Not the most graceful way to celebrate humanity's will to go beyond, but regardless, for setting and structure, we're gonna go with a soft deep. Part 2, Interstellar's religious imagery. It may sound odd for a film that purports to ennoble man's search for certainty deals in religious imagery, yet Interstellar is loaded with religious symbolism, which to be fair, many have commented on in the past. There's an omniscient godlike being who creates a wormhole and guides everything. Originally, 12 astronauts are sent to explore this wormhole, just as Jesus sent out 12 disciples in his name, and Cooper becomes to represent the Holy Trinity. First as the Son, when Cooper, like Jesus, sacrifices himself to save humanity. And, like Jesus, Cooper's miraculously resurrected and comes back to civilization, only to immediately leave once again. He even spends time wandering in the wilderness, albeit on an uninhabitable planet instead of the desert. When Cooper enters the godlike being's tesseract, he becomes the Holy Spirit, i.e. the ghost guiding Murphy and himself in the past. Later, Cooper becomes the Father, reaching out and touching Amelia when they first enter the wormhole, a la Michelangelo's The Creation of Adam. There are even 2 Noah's Arks, one the spaceship holding the embryos that Cooper pilots for a majority of the runtime, and the other in the film's coda, the spaceship transporting Earth's survivors through the cosmos. These religious images aren't about crafting anything mystical though. In fact, the opposite is true. Interstellar incorporates these religious elements into an explainable framework. The godlike omniscient beings guiding everything is just humanity in the future. The ghost that gives them coordinates, it's just Coop in the Tesseract. Cooper seemingly never aging and rising from the dead, Einstein's relativity in practice. Miracles can happen, but not through prayer. Instead, miracles, like saving humanity from extinction, come through science, the pioneer spirit, and belief in the imagination. Hans Zimmer's score, which utilizes religious church organs, highlights this point. Per Nolan, I wanted Zimmer to use the church organ. I also made the case very strongly for some feeling of religiosity to it, even though the film isn't religious. But that the organ, the architecture, cathedrals, and all the rest, they represent mankind's attempt to portray the mystical or the metaphysical, what's beyond us, beyond the realm of the everyday. Yet again, Nolan speaks to the importance of journeying into the unknown, because what might seem beyond us, even the metaphysical, can possibly be understood and help us in the face of insurmountable odds. So for this novel treatment of religious imagery, we're also gonna say deep. Part 3, Interstellar's Science of Love? Nolan consulted for years with American theoretical physicist and Nobel laureate Kip Thorne. There's even an entire book that explains these scientific concepts behind the film's cosmological ideas. Science is a huge part of Interstellar. The B-plot centers around Murph attempting to solve a seemingly impossible gravitational equation, but in order to figure it out, she can't just blindly accept what Dr. Brand thinks, that the equation is impossible. Yet again, Nolan stresses the importance of pursuing the unknown, not just in the cosmos, but in science itself. Instead of dismissing what might seem unknowable as nonsense, humanity must confront these problems with due diligence and try to incorporate these ideas into the scientific method.
If you want to talk science, don't just tell me that you're afraid of some ghost. No, you gotta go further. You gotta record the facts, analyze, get to the how and the why, then present your conclusions.
This necessity of incorporating uncertainty into frameworks that seek to solidify certainty is developed in a really clever subplot involving TARS, in which it's revealed that TARS's optimal honesty setting is only at 90%.
Hey, Tars, what's your honesty parameter?
90%.
90%.
Absolute honesty isn't always the most diplomatic, nor the safest form of communication with emotional beings.
While we might think of emotion as being counter to rational thinking, Tars's 10% dishonesty calculus suggests that emotion can be incorporated into a model seeking absolute certainty. And since we're on the topic of emotion, let's talk about love. Yes, this is where things get a little dicey and where most claims of dumbness have been leveled at the film. Interstellar takes a big emotional swing for the fences, arguing that just like traditional science, emotions, a la love, can also be quantified and known. You all know the scene.
Love isn't something we invented. It's observable, powerful. It has to mean something.
Love has meaning, yes. Social utility, social bonding, child rearing.
We love people who have died. Where's the social utility in that?
None.
Maybe it means something more, something we can't yet understand. Maybe it's some evidence, some artifact of a higher dimension that we can't consciously perceive. I'm drawn across the universe to someone I haven't seen in a decade, who I know is probably dead. Love is the one thing we're capable of perceiving that transcends dimensions of time and space. Maybe we should trust that, even if we can't understand it yet.
And the film backs up this monologue. In the end, Amelia's right about which planet is habitable. Later in the Tesseract, Cooper's able to figure out how to communicate with Murph through his love for her. Nolan seems to be arguing the same as before. Just because love seems undefinable doesn't mean we should dismiss it as such. Instead, we should, you know the drill, attempt to understand this unknown and use it for our betterment. And yet, the film's actual definition of love feels vague at best. Unlike the scientific and religious connotations which are given specific answers, Interstellar's manifestation of love boils down ultimately to some sort of gut instinct. Coop claims that it's through love that future humanity guided him to just the right time and place in the Tesseract so that he could communicate with Murph. Though even that is a bit vague. But to be fair, how can you define emotions in anything but the vaguest of terms? It's a problem that Interstellar can't quite master. So yeah, in a movie all about journeying into the unknown and using science and reason to solve humanity's crises, it does feel a little odd to fall back on a vague appeal to love as the grand solution. But perhaps Interstellar is trying to suggest that love, like gravity, is an observable force of attraction. Just as two masses attract each other through gravity, two people are attracted to each other through love. And if that is observable, maybe it's not all mystical mumbo-jumbo. But even if you buy that, the film only seems to uphold certain kinds of love, favoring Coop's love for his daughter while ignoring his son. The film celebrates love for someone who's a pioneer, like Murphy, but then dismisses the love for someone of the land, like Tom. In Interstellar's worldview, Tom represents everything wrong with the feet in the sand Earth philosophy, so he gets left behind in the literal dust. I mean, when Cooper wakes up in the future, he doesn't even ask about what happened to his son or if he's even alive. That's cold and maybe even a little dumb. So what to make of Interstellar? Is it deep? Is it dumb? Yes, there are some awkward contradictions and haziness around the whole love thing. But perhaps that's inevitable when you're making a film that affirms and celebrates our most essential human characteristics. After all, Nolan isn't a scientist. His job isn't to write a proof on how to quantify love. His job is to dramatize it, to make us feel. And just as Cooper's message of love transcends time and space to Murph, the image of a 2013 Matthew McConaughey crying on a soundstage in Burbank transcends time and space and makes 2019 me all misty-eyed in my crappy apartment. So if the film inspires you, if it makes you excited about the cosmos, about humanity's ability to use its grit and creativity to thrust ourselves into the future, then the movie is deep. Because that's the message of the film. And if this whole soapboxy speech came off as cheesy and you didn't care, well, then the movie is dumb. Anything that can happen will happen after all. But what do you guys think? Did Nolan trip over his own ambition, or is Interstellar another masterpiece? Thanks to all our patrons who support the channel and our podcast. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, and as always, thanks for watching, guys. But before you go, I want to give another shout out to Surviving Mars' new expansion, Green Planet. I recently played the game and had a lot of fun building my colony and terraforming Mars. From setting up your supply chains to handpicking your colonists, there are so many things you can do to make your colony thrive. Making the wrong move can be costly, but that's the thrilling thing that sets this strategy game apart. Surviving Mars is available on PC, Xbox One, and PS4. And right now, the base game is available to play for free on Steam. So get started building your own colony today by clicking the link in the description. Thanks for watching, guys. Peace.